Welcome to Happy Stitching from Magic Hour Cross Stitch Supplies. I'm Donna Murphy, and that's Serena Murphy, my daughter, behind the camera. And we're continuing our series for beginner cross stitchers working towards starting their very first cross stitch pattern. So we're beginning today with preparing our fabric. Now we need to know what kind of fabric we want, what count or how many holes or how fine the fabric is, and how big of a piece do we need. Those are the essential things that we need to know. And all of that information is right here in your pattern. So the pattern that we're going to be working from is this one called Pinwheel. And we will also work somewhat in this one, Groovy. Now we have already prepared our floss and our fabric, and the fabric I've chosen to actually stitch this project, which I'm really going to do. And we have another piece of fabric that is what we're going to use for demonstration. So all the essential information that you need to know how big of a piece of fabric that you need is on your pattern. But before you even look at that, you have to think about when you're finished your project, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to frame it, or are you going to turn it into a pillow? Are you going to make a bag? Because those things will inform your decision about what size of count that you want for your picture. I prefer to have a lower count or heavier fabric for something that I'm actually going to use, so it'll stand up to a little wear. If it's going to be something that would be framed on the wall, then it might have a little bit of finer quality to it and smaller stitches, and then it can just sit on the wall. And it doesn't have to be, I don't have to think about how much wear is it going to take. So I'm on Pinwheel. I'm going to turn this into a pillow. So I'm going to want to have either a sturdy 18 count or a 14 count. So I've chosen for this pattern this nice hand-dyed 18 count. This is what I'm going to stitch the project on. And for demonstration purposes, we're going to show you how to get it started on a nice clean white, off-white piece of 14 count so you can see it more easily. Now that we've made those decisions, now we can look at the information on the pattern. I need these. The pattern was designed, it says right here, fabric 18 count. So the design area in inches, if you're stitching on 18 count, that's actually how big the design area will be. That's not how big the fabric needs to be. It needs to be bigger than that, but that's the design area. However, what if you're choosing to stitch it on something else? You need to be able to figure out how big that fabric needs to be. So there is a very, very easy calculation that you can do, and it's just one simple division. So don't be scared of the calculation. On your pattern somewhere, it will say, this is the legend page. On this pattern, there's only one, the rest is the pattern. But it will say grid size, or sometimes design area, or stitch count, something like that. But what it will do is it'll give you a number wide and a number high. That's the number of stitches in the pattern. And if you want to confirm that, you can just look at the actual pattern and you can see the pattern goes up and the grids are numbered. This one says 125 stitches wide, and you can see it says 120 and there's 5 more. So that's definitely the stitch count that we're looking at. This one happens to be square, so it's 125 stitches square. So in each direction, 125 stitches. So the very simple calculation is you take the design size, make sure you're not looking at the recommended fabric size. because different manufacturers will recommend different margins and such. But look at the design size or stitch count. And the design size, 125 stitches. Divide that by whatever your count is. So if we're using 14 count Aida, 125 divided by 14. I wrote these calculations for clarity at the bottom of my pattern. You can see that the calculation is 125 divided by the 14 equals 9, about 9. But we had to add enough room around the design for the purpose of finishing. So most stitchers will want either 2 inches or 3 inches. I like 3 inches. I like a little room to play. And on this beautiful fabric, as you can see, the design area will give lots of room around. So I want some of the fabric to show around. So whether I frame it, decide to frame it, or put it on a pillow, or whatever I do with it, a good part of the fabric also will show. You can do the same if the plain fabric, and it really looks nice. Looks like a mat if you're using a frame, and it's really a personal choice. But you do have to add some extra fabric around the design area. So add 6 inches to whatever that calculation is. So again, 125 divided by the 14 is 9. We added 6, that's 3 inches on each side to know that it's 15 inches. And it's a square pattern, so it's added 3 inches here and here as well. 15 inches by 15 inches. If we were doing it on 16 count, 125 divided by 16 is going to be about 8 inches. Add the 6. It'll be 14 inches square because there's more stitches in the inch. So you use up the fabric faster, you might say, or use up the pattern faster, use less of the fabric. And the 18 count Aida, it would be about 7 inches square. Add the 6, you'll need 13-inch square piece of fabric. Okay, so we're doing our test piece on 14 count. So this is a piece of 15-inch square Aida. So we have taken our bolt of fabric. This is part of the bolt. And it's so very simple. I have marked it at 15 inches with my tape measure, which escapes me at the moment, but that's okay. And I take my water erase marker and I just mark it, and I can draw the line all the way up, and it will guide my scissors all the way. Aida is very easy to cut because the holes actually make a little channel, and the scissors can just stay right in there. The same with using the pen. It's very simple. It wants to stay in a straight line. We're going to talk more about that in the gridding video, which will be up next. So once you have your piece of fabric cut, it'll look like this. These are all raw edge fabrics. That's the 14. This is the 16. And here's a piece of 18. These are all just bits I've had around the house. So it doesn't matter what count you have. It is a good idea to finish these edges because it's a loose kind of fabric, and the little threads just come right off. It is not that big a deal because they'll only come off 3 or 4 of them, and then it'll stop fraying. But the more you use it, the more it'll fray. But up to a point. It won't like fray away to your design or anything. But it is nice to finish those edges. So if you have a sewing machine and can do zigzag, you can finish your fabric. This one is finished with a zigzagging. You can't even see it. I did it in yellow and white. And you can see it still get a thread or two from time to time. But not a big deal. We just take it off and it leaves a nice soft little edge there, but it won't go past the zigzagging, so your fabric is safe. This one has been serged. If you have a serger, this is a nice way to finish your fabric, and it keeps it very safe. Many people that sell cut fabric will serge your fabric for you if you ask, or may come serged. We do that for our customers, of course. So if you buy a piece of fabric from a shop, you'll probably have it already finished on the edges. So now that my fabric is cut to the right size and edged, we've made sure it's the right size because we've done our calculations, and it's edged, and now it's ready to grid. So we're ready to move on to the next step of our project, and that will be the next video. So join us for that one. This has been Magic Hour Cross Stitch Supplies. Happy stitching!